Well, with the countdown for the Trans Mountain Pipeline fast approaching and the federal government scrapping amendments proposed for Bill C-69, the heat for Canada's pipeline space continues to rise. Seymour Schulich is an entrepreneur and philanthropist who made, of course, a large fortune investing in the energy sector in this country. And I wanted to start right there, Seymour, because it's kind of a state of play, right? What are we getting wrong? And let's start with the Trans Mountain decision. What should the federal government do next week?
Well, I'm sincerely worried if they don't approve that and start to be more conscious of the energy industry's place in our country, we're going to fuel separation in Alberta and Saskatchewan. And when you have 50% of the people being polled saying they would consider such a thing, mm-hmm. I lived in Quebec in the troubling times, and I don't remember the polls ever getting that high. They might have gotten very close at the end, but during the process, I don't ever remember them being that high. So if this government doesn't start to realize where its bread is buttered, even animals learn, where their sustenance comes from, and they don't bite the hand that feeds them. And this government has been biting the hand that feeds it in an inexorable fashion.
Yeah, the complexity, of course, is walking this line between, we want to do our part on greenhouse gas emissions. We want to be seeing to do what we can on climate change. How do we do pipelines and say we're doing that?
We have to get in our head. We are 1.5% of the emissions in the world. 1.5%. And the oil sands, which has become the whipping boy for everything, is about 1/10 of that. So what are we doing? We're basically taking an industry that employs 558,000. It did employ it. And we put up a giant sign, we're not open for business.
Right.
And, you've got 40% vacancies now in Alberta in the office towers. Why is that? That's because the Europeans have left. The Americans have largely left. Well, even our Canadian companies have left.
They're even changing
Canada is gone. Trans-Canada Pipe is gone.
Yep.
They're so embarrassed they changed the name from Trans-Canada Pipe to TCP or whatever the heck it is.
Yeah.
So, we're becoming a pariah because the government doesn't realize the value, one of its main drivers. You get about $100 billion a year out of the oil and gas industry in GNP, and you get $65 billion a year out of the car industry.
Would we, though? I mean, the line that many like is, the Stone Age didn't end because they ran out of stones. We make decisions, we move on with innovation. Would we be faster to move on if we decreased our reliance on the energy sector sooner? In other words, if we forced our own hand and had to find another source of income?
Well, that's like saying, would you be better off cutting one of your arms off or one of your legs off, and then putting on an artificial arm or leg? Would that be better? Yeah, if you're willing to sacrifice 10 or 20 years of your livelihood, you could do that. It's not a very sensible thing to do. Purposely amputating, one of your limbs is not an intelligent thing to do, and this is what we're doing.
You think we're on a bit of a timeline here? You think we should exploit our natural resources while we can, because at some point technology will overtake us?
You've just appropriated the reason I'm here today. Now, A, I'm scared stiff for our country, and B, I'm absolutely convinced that technology would solve the problem. And I can give you an example. Back in my father's time, it was a horse society, mm-hmm. and there was horse droppings everywhere, and people were too busy working to worry about them. But everything changed due to Henry Ford. And in 20 years, the horses disappeared and we had cars and trucks. And in 20 to 25 years, hydrocarbons are going to disappear and they're going to be replaced by fusion power. And the Chinese believe they're working on a project 10 times bigger than the Europeans and Americans combined. They think it's going to be 10 years. The sources working on the large European project, ITER, think it's going to be 20 to 25 years. But it's coming. This isn't a mystery. This is fusion power. It exists in the universe everywhere. Every star has fusion power. The sun is powered by fusion power. My company is hired a firm called Mosaic, and we're going to attempt to educate Canadians on exactly what fusion power is, because Canadians don't know.